The topic for page 5 and 6 notes is evaluating expressions. So that means you're going to see a problem that has numbers and operations, and your job is to come up with the one number for the answer. And you'll do so by following the order of operations. Before we get to order of operations, we're going to talk about absolute value. Absolute value is the distance a number is from 0. So you think of this on a number line. You count to the left for a negative number and you count to the right for a positive number. But when you're talking about the distance of something, that means it's never negative. You cannot measure a negative distance. Now, your answer to one of these absolute value questions could be negative based on if you add or subtract or multiply or divide at the end. But when you take the absolute value, when that's the operation you're doing, that part of it cannot be negative. So number 1, the absolute value of negative 13 is positive 13. Negative 13 is 13 away from 0. Again, it doesn't matter that it's negative. It just matters that it's 13 away. The absolute value of 21 is positive 21. It doesn't become negative. We're going to look at 3 and 6 kind of at the same time so you can see the difference between those two. Number 3 has 2 separate absolute values being added together, where number 6 has 2 numbers inside the absolute value. So for this one, when you have 2 separate ones, your first step is to take the absolute value. So the absolute value of negative 3 is 3. Bring down the addition sign. The absolute value of negative 5 is 5. 3 plus 5 is 8 for your final answer. For 6, since it's inside, you need to do the subtraction first. 21 minus 17 is 4. So we have the absolute value of 4 left. The absolute value of 4 is still 4. So notice in number 3, your first step takes away the absolute value, and then you add it in this case. In number 6, you subtracted first. The absolute value bars don't go away. Now, this one would have been the same whether you would have forgot them in that step or not. But if you are showing all of your work, and the correct way to do it is to keep the absolute value bars there and then get your final answer. Absolute value bars, when we get down to the rest of the examples, act like parentheses. So you need to do the inside first before you take the absolute value. When we look at number 4, it looks like number 3, where we have 2 separate ones. So the absolute value of 9 is 9, plus the absolute value of negative 8 is 8. 9 plus 8 is 17. You can go ahead and pause and see if you can get the rest of them correct. Number 5, 2 separate, so we do them individually. Absolute value of negative 12 is 12. Bring down the plus sign. Absolute value of 15 is 15. 12 plus 15 is 27. Number 11, the absolute value of negative 11 is 11. Bring down the subtraction sign. The absolute value of negative 5 is 5. 11 minus 5 is 6. Number 8, again, 2 separate ones. Some people think you do the add positive right away, but you don't. Absolute value of 4 is 4, minus absolute value of negative 4 is also 4. So 4 minus 4 is 0. Number 9, you need to do the subtraction first. So bring down your absolute value bars. 15 minus 3 is negative 8. The absolute value of negative 8 is positive 8. So a lot of people forget and put negative 8 as their answer. The other thing you have to realize is this does not become a plus sign. That doesn't change it on the inside just because it's in the absolute value. You need to do the numbers first and then take the absolute value. Number 10, the absolute value of 24 is 24. Bring down the subtraction. Absolute value of negative 15 is 15. 24 minus 15 is 9. Number 11, absolute value of 28 is 28, minus absolute value of negative 26 is 26, and you subtract to get 2. And finally 12, the absolute value of negative 3 is 3, minus the absolute value of 19 is 19. 3 minus 19 is negative 16. So it's okay if your final answer is negative because you subtracted to get that answer. Next, we're going to look at using the order of operations to evaluate expressions. So this is a certain order used to simplify expressions. Now I think usually you just learn the saying PEMDAS, P-E-M-D-A-S. I learned it as please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. What you'll notice though is there's only 4 blanks. Okay, so here we go. We're going to start with the P for parentheses. We like to actually call them grouping symbols because you could also have brackets instead of just parentheses. Absolute value bars are also considered grouping symbols. So just like up here, we had to do the inside first before we took the absolute value. The E stands for exponents. Now, instead of having 2 separate lines, the M and the D, the multiplication and division, are on the same line because you do those left to right. So if division comes first, you actually need to do the division first. And then we have the addition and subtraction, and same thing with those. You do those from left to right. So you don't have to show every single step, but a lot of steps you will need to show. So a lot of people are tempted to do this 3 times 2 first because they see the parentheses, but there's nothing happening inside the parentheses. So this is just showing multiplication. So you actually need to do 7 plus the division first because the division comes first when you're looking left to right. 54 divided by 3 is 18, and then times 2. So notice I changed the parentheses to a multiplication sign. If you want to leave it with the parentheses, either way is fine. So now I need to do 7 plus 18 times 2 is 36. So my answer is 43. Number 14. Notice we have exponents in there. So I'm going to bring the 17 minus 2 to the 5th. There's 2 ways you can do that. You can either multiply 2 times itself 5 times, that's what it means, or find your exponent key. Mine looks like this. So 2 to the 5th is what mine would do. So 2 to the 5th is 32 divided by 4 and still plus 6. So now we need to do the 32 divided by 4. Some people like to cross it off as they do it. So minus 8 and plus 6. Once you get down to all addition and subtraction, you can just plug it in all at once. 17 minus 8 plus 6 to get 15. So instead of doing the 17 minus 8, writing 9, then 9 plus 6 gives you 15. You can just do it all at once when you're down to addition and subtraction only. Number 15 is very similar to 14. So we start by bringing down the 24 minus 4 squared. 4 times 4 is 16 times 3 plus 15. So then we need to do the 16 times 3, which is 48. So we can do 24 minus 48. Again, if you want to write down negative 24 for that, that's fine. Or just add the 15 right away. And our final answer is negative 9. When we have what is called a big fraction, you have to do the entire top down to one number and the entire bottom down to one number, and then divide or simplify. So for this one, we need to do 7 minus 4 plus 17. Some people like to do the entire top and then go back and do the entire bottom. Some people like to do them both, so you decide what works best for you. This is going to be negative 14 plus 2 times 5 is 10. Now, instead of rewriting everything again, you can just do 7 minus 4 is 3. 3 plus 17 is 20. So my top number is 20. Negative 14 plus 10 is negative 4. So 20 divided by negative 4 is negative 5.